just mostly for Byron, but obviously for anybody that this pertains to, which means anybody around the country and the world, with regards to more measures being put in place, part of the script being played out. At the moment in Byron, we're seeing masks come back. So we knew it would happen, been talking about it for a while, so it should be no surprise to people, and therefore the response should be very measured and calculated, and something that we've already prepared for. So what do we do about masks? It's very simple. Is it law to wear a mask? You will not find any legislation anywhere that talks about laws pertaining to masks. They are all requirements, recommendations. You should get your customers to wear a mask, for example. At no point does it say that it's actually enforceable. Now, when you hear words like that, it's essentially just that the script is running to make you think a certain way, which makes you compliant and obedient. But there is actually no law that says that we, the people, need to wear a face covering. So we're going to talk very quickly, because I've got a call soon, like 20 minutes, about how to handle this, and not just how to handle it as in how do we conduct ourselves, but how to handle us and ourselves. So firstly, as I mentioned, there is no law that requires anybody to wear a face covering. Now, those are all recommendations and requirements. When we're talking about acts, because some people say, well, what's the law? How do I figure out, or how do I say it? My recommendation, if you can even speak, is that you don't use it. Because you're trying to go into a realm that you're like grasping at straws. I have no power, so give me the source of power that I can use to make up for the lack of mine. That's why I don't recommend it. That's why I don't talk about laws myself. However, for those that are asking, it comes under the Biosecurity Act. Now, quick question, can acts conflict between or within one another? Nope, they can't. Therefore, if the state is saying one thing and the federal is saying another, which has precedent, state or federal? Most people should know the answer is federal. Everything that we're hearing comes from the state. At the moment, in Byron Bay, the state of New South Wales, the health, whoever, says to do this. Now, if the federal level is not saying it, well, then you've got to read between the lines. The example I've been giving recently is that if the state says that the sky is green, and the federal does not say that it's blue, but does not say that it's green, but is not really speaking or saying anything about it, well, then they're in contradiction, right? Because by virtue of not actually saying anything in particular, well, that's what their statement is. So if state is saying the sky is green, but federal has nothing to say about it, federal overrides the state. There's still a conflict, because unless federal also says the sky is green, well, then the state doesn't count. That's why none of this can be enforceable or even applies in the first place. So it is the Biosecurity Act that overrules or oversees anything to do with face coverings, quarantine, testing, health in general. You must be displaying symptoms. We've been through this 100 times. You must be displaying symptoms. You must be deemed unfit by a chief health officer, as well as some assigns, not just some random somebody, COVID marshal, police officer, or anybody at the state. They have to come from that level, not the state level even. So there's a direct conflict. Therefore, what is being put in place is simply recommendations. We'd like you to do this. Please, can you put a napkin on your face? That's it. That's what they're saying. They're saying, please, can you do what we say so that we can continue to roll out our show? That's it. They can't do anything other than that. Now, I know some people have been having some difficulties at the moment. I'll quickly cover that as well. So that's the law side of things, because people are asking. The reason that I don't care about which law says what is that it's about how we stand and how we communicate from ourselves. It's not about the laws. Like I said, if you feel that you want to know which act do I refer to, it's because you don't feel any power in yourself. So that's the first thing that needs to change, not learning more about acts and laws. Now, when somebody asks you to wear a mask, be very mindful about how you communicate. Because if you come from a place of, like, you're being spoken down to, so you have to come back over more strongly, the communication's going to be off. Because you're pretty much going to come from almost an attacking or a defending point of view, which never goes well. So rather than feel the need to defend, we simply need to ask questions. So if somebody says, for example, well, questions comes later, but if they say, look, do you have a mask? Just say, well, I'm exempt. Thanks for asking, and move it away. Don't let them continue. Just say, oh, I'm exempt. Thanks very much for asking. Just be polite about it. You don't have to defend anything. So if they say, well, you can't come in or whatever, you say, really, well, the thing is I'm exempt, so what do you mean? Are you refusing me entry? Are you refusing a entry into a place of public accommodation? Are you discriminating against me, for example? There's a few ways that this plays out. One is discrimination. If you are unable to wear a mask, and that's all the legislation itself says, if you're unable to wear one, why are you unable to wear one? Well, it causes anxiety, you get skin conditions, you get breathing problems, you get nausea, you vomit, you get dizzy, whatever it is, you just can't wear one. It causes distress because of current or past trauma or anxiety. That's it. You don't have to have a medical exemption, you just have to be exempt because you can't wear one. That's actually all you need to say. Now, if somebody tries to probe that, what business is it theirs of your private information? That's not only is that your privacy in general, but that's your medical privacy. It's like double, you can't ask me that. So, but rather than say you can't ask me that and get into this combative nature, just say, well, look, appreciate your concern. I believe that it's your job just to simply ask, right? Is it your job to enforce that? Yeah, because it's not. So it's like, great, you've asked. I've told you I'm exempt. Now, are you now saying that you're going to discriminate against me? And some will. I've heard some are. Most, 90-something% of the time, everything's fine. But for those that aren't, well, hey, you're just going to have to hold position. How do you do that? Well, I've got plenty of videos on that. But you might just have to file a formal complaint, which means get in their name. If they don't give you their name, then call Fair Trading, call ASIC, call the Ombudsman. Once they're contacted, it costs them money if the Ombudsman contacts them. So that's how you can get the name, that's how you can file a formal complaint. You'll get an apology, you might get some money, and if you really want to take it further, you can actually hold them personally liable and go down that route, if you really wanted to. I don't necessarily recommend it, but hey, some people just might need to be held accountable to set a precedent for not only everybody else, but for them. You know, sometimes I think if people are willing to meet us halfway, then, let's do that. We don't have to go, oh, we're never coming back here again, I'll tell all my friends not to come here, and you'll be sorry you ever messed with me. Where's that coming from? What kind of place is that coming from if you feel the need to defend that heavily? You really got to ask yourself that, because this whole show, it's not about what's going on, it's about us. And it really will show you who you are and where you are as to how it affects you. Are you affected? A lot of people aren't actually affected. They're like, oh yeah, cool. Scene 3, Act 4 is about to go down. It's just big deal. Who cares? Whereas other people get very caught up in it. So it's really a reflection of I think it's a favour for most people to find out where they are and who they are. I think it's doing everyone a big favour. So if you feel you want to do that, it's not wrong. And because some people, look, it's a good for them. If they realise, hey, they just came up against a brick wall. Hey, people are actually holding accountable. They're facing fines now. Then what? Well, they've learned a really good lesson. Now they can question. Maybe they can tell other business owners that it's not the right idea, it's not the right move to be preventing people from obtaining essential services or discriminating from entering places of public accommodation. Again, we've covered this a lot of times, so I don't think we really need to continue to go down all the ins and outs of that. I do want to make the point that you need to be very grounded in yourself. Words carry a certain resonance, and they essentially speak who you are without you saying, I am this or I'm a whatever. They speak about who you are. So even if you learn the right words to say, it doesn't necessarily get you where you might like to go, because the resonance is what communicates everything else. That's why, 5 people could go and say the exact same thing and get 5 completely different results with the same person. So being grounded more than anything with what we're seeing in the world is so important, simply because if we're not grounded, we're going to be taken away with however the script runs. And you'll kick and scream and you'll think it's horrible and you'll post all over Facebook, and the amount of people that are getting caught up just in the narrative itself, it's like, how many times do people have to share the same stuff, or just, it's the same. I don't know why people can't see that side is a script as well. You get your hopes up. Oh, Dr. Snuffleupagus has said something great. Oh, yes, all praise Dr. Snuffleupagus. And then all of a sudden it changes. Oh, no, this is happening. And then, oh, somebody's running a class action. Yes, they'll save us all. Oh, no, it's like this. Why are you doing that? It's like the amount of time people are on these group chats. It's like, here a link, there a link, everywhere a link. Send me another link. Here's a link, there's a link. It's like, stop sending links. It does nothing other than get you all up in a hysterics about, oh, look at what's going on in the world. That's not what's going on in the world. That is the show. That's the facade. What's going on in the world is you. You're doing this roller coaster. It's like, just get off the ride. It's that simple. Stop sharing links everywhere. Stop putting your hopes in Dr. this and that and Magoo here and there. Most of them are shills, I'll tell you that. Most of them are fake. I don't care who you think's great. Most of them are fake. They couldn't get out and actually tell you the truth without being shot or something else. So they don't. So just treat most of them as controlled opposition, which is what most of them are. Do not get your hopes up in other people. It is only ever going to come from you and us as a collective, as a community. We've said this so many times. It's only ever going to come from us as a community and us doing the work with ourselves. So it's a really good indication of how we react, and we shouldn't be reacting, we should just be acting to what goes on in society, or what the new flavour of the moment is from the news is saying, now this has changed, now that's changed, now this rule, now that rule, now you've got to wear this, now you can't go there. That's all, that shouldn't change anything in here. If it does, great. That's just an indication that there's something that needs to be cleaned out within us. That's it, nothing more. Because as soon as that happens, we remove the polarity, we stop actually inviting and co-creating what we're seeing around us, and everything is more or less what we're creating, not the ride that we're being taken on, which goes up and down and up and down. And eventually, you might get sick of that and might want to get off the ride before you puke. So, that's probably a good idea. So getting grounded is one of the most, if not the most important thing. Because when you're grounded, when you speak, it kind of doesn't matter what words you speak, your words carry a resonance. And that resonance says, you know who you are. And that is all you need to say. It's not, the Biosecurity Act says this, but you can't do that. But no, I'm not doing that. And this, it's like, no, you know who you are. And that's it. Does that sound overly simple? Well, that probably does sound overly simple. But that's, if you don't get that part, the rest is just going to be you chasing your tail until you get that part. So yes, learn how to communicate, learn how to speak the words, learn how to hold yourself. But more than anything, it is that hold yourself, how grounded are you? And then how much resonance do your words carry? And do they let anybody around you know who you are? Do you say with your very words, without spelling it out, that you don't consent to that? That you choose your reality? Because if you don't say that, again, you're communicating something else. If you can say the right words, but if you're communicating something different, well then that's what's going to come out. If you haven't seen it yet, have a look on my website, tombarnett.tv. I did a recent live stream on Instagram, which was about it was about the faith in things. I don't want to go into it again because I've got limited time. But I think a lot of people got a lot of benefit out of that. So if you haven't seen it, it was pretty much the last one I put on. It was called My Consent is Absolutely Essential. That was what that one was called. So check that one out. Really quickly, so last night we had a community meeting. We're really blessed in this area. We have regular meetings when things like this crop up because we get into action. And one of our members went through the service station to get fuel beforehand and got abused by the service station owner. So I went in there after the meeting and got fuel. And so they go, got a mask? I said, oh, I'm exempt, thanks. And normally I'm used to having to hold my position a little. They try to push it. Look, I told you I'm exempt. Thanks very much for asking. Now, can we do this now? So we do the thing, then we move away from it. We don't try to get into a conversation about that. Yeah, thanks very much. I told you I'm exempt. Anyway, I'm pump number whatever, right? Like, you get them to follow your direction. Anyway, he didn't do that. He just like went, rolled his eyes, dropped his head. He was in the store with me, then muttered something as he went around the door to get behind the counter. And he says, that's what everyone's saying, right? And I'm like, well, if they're exempt, they will say that. So what he was getting at was that he wanted to voice his disapproval in people like doing, not wearing masks. So anyway, I could get, this is the thing, we're all in the same community. Even people in the shops, you think, oh, they're doing stuff wrong to me, and they're just in the same community. They've got a job to do. They probably don't care after they go home. So try to treat them as such. If you don't pass the attitude test of here's just another man or woman in front of you, treat them as that first and foremost, and then the law stuff after that. So anyway, we got into a bit of a chat, and I just helped them explain things, and just a little. I didn't want to give them too much because I like when other people can go in and do that, and not me go and do it all. And eventually he just started saying, well, look, I don't actually care, like one way or the other. And in his eyes, he was quite angry. He had a bit of resentment, but under that was some sadness, and I could really see it. And so I didn't need to tell him anything like, we're going to destroy your business, or never going to come back here, or I'm going to sue you for... It's like, he's like, the police came in twice today. I'm like, well, listen, the police can't do anything. And I just explained why, which everyone should know about by now. So anyway, we left that interaction with him being relatively good about it. Still, obviously a bit, you're doing the wrong thing, but, getting around there. And then when I went out, I went around the corner and there was a few people wearing masks, which was a bit of a surprise. And there was 3 teenage girls wearing masks. And then sometimes, as they can be, I think because they're on holiday, they can be a bit like, oh, why aren't you wearing a mask? Because when they saw me. And if anybody's been listening, you know that when you're dealing with a stranger, or just in general, it's a good habit, unless you already know who you're talking to, you don't answer questions, right? So I didn't answer the question. I answered with a question. I said, well, where are you from? And they said, I forget what town, but it's nowhere near here. So obviously they're not from here. And I said, all right, well, I'm from Byron Bay, and we don't tolerate that kind of crap around here. That's why I'm not wearing a mask. And they thought I was really cool after that, or at least I thought I was really cool. Maybe they didn't. But their tone kind of like, oh, wow. They kind of, without telling them anything, educating them on anything, they kind of got it. Like, we around here, we don't take that. We do what we know to be right. And we also, as a community, we don't just do the civil disobedience. We actually are proactive and include those that are the business owners, because if you put yourself in their shoes, they are under a lot of pressure. So they just need a bit of education, and they also need us to carry the right energy so that we're grounded when we speak to them, or when we interact, or when we approach them in the first place, so that they don't feel like, here's a maskless somebody coming in to threaten me and my business. Whether they believe that it's got anything to do with health or not, it's their business first and foremost. That's what they're really concerned about. So treat them as such, rather than be combative and, no, you can't do that, and I know the law and I know my rights. Treat them first of all as a human in your community that needs to know that you've got their back. And I think that's the key thing that might be missing in all of our communities, wherever you are, is that it's almost like it's divided. And obviously that's the tactic, right? Divide and conquer. So rather than allow that to take place, it takes a very grounded individual to be able to come into that and to not have that separation there, and to start off like that, like, you can't do this, I can do this. Immediately we're separated. So to combat that, as I said, it's the grounding. It's very, very important to be at this point in time. That's my recommendation. So I've got plenty of other videos on how to do the speaking thing, and how to handle masks and QRs and etc. But literally all you have to do is you just have to say, I can't wear one. That's it. Look, or I'm exempt. Now, some of us are good at lying, if we're sociopaths or psychopaths or just good liars, poker players, whatever. But most people can't. It comes across in your communication. So if you say, I have a medical exemption, and you don't, something, if you're just an open, honest person, will communicate that you're not being congruent. Whereas if you say, I'm exempt, that's different from having a medical exemption. Remembering that that information is private either way, but if you don't want to communicate as if you are not telling the truth, just say, I'm exempt. I can't wear one. According to the actual law, they're not even laws, but the directions, that's all you need to do anyway. Don't fear police with it. They're not going to hassle you. The biggest hassles are going to be the store owners. Now, that's not a blanket statement. I hear some people have got fines. No COVID fines are sticking, remember? But you shouldn't get it in the first place if you know how to communicate and hold your position. And that's what the workshops that I've been running are about. How to do that. How to hold position, how to communicate, so that you don't get into that place in the first place where you're actually ending up with a ticket of some sort. But the majority of the time, like 99.9% of the time, your main element you're dealing with is your fellow man or woman who is at the shop. So that's where we need to come from. So groundedness, communicating, treating them as another man or woman first and foremost. On the same side, not separate. Then it's a case of being very firm but very polite. I'm exempt, but thanks for asking. I appreciate you doing your job. Sure, you've got a hard job. Or, I get that this might be difficult for you, but I am exempt. I can't wear one. I hope you appreciate that and respect the difficulty I face in having everybody look at me like this, or trying to deny me entry and violating my rights to actually, get fuel or food or enter a place of public accommodation. So, let them know what it's like for you as well. Politely, empathy, right? We're communicating as men and women here, not you versus me. Then, if need be, hold position, ask questions. Well, look, it's my understanding that if you were going to refuse me entry, or just say, look, if you were going to refuse me entry, is that not discrimination? I believe that I'm protected by law against discrimination and that you could be held liable. Well, we're getting fines from this. Well, have you actually received a fine before? Are you aware that that's actually just a directive? You know, is it your job to ask me? Is it not just your job to ask me? You've done your job. How can you get a fine? Is it really your job to enforce that? Do you work for the government? Are you a police officer? Are you a medical officer? Or are you in fact a shopkeeper? So you've done your job. Thank you. You can't get in trouble now. However, if you discriminated against me, you absolutely can. Not in those words, just to that effect. So that's that. Now, last thing is if you want to wear it, me and Dave made these shirts. We finally got them ready. The website will be ready in about a week. But this is about consent. My consent is absolutely essential, backed up by Cruden versus Neil and Nuremberg Code. So we'll be at Kurubel Hall tomorrow night, 6:30 till 8:30 p.m. for the workshop. If you want to come along to that, it's $35 for the workshop, which is basically just going to be dedicated to the masks and the QR codes that we're currently dealing with. And if you want to pick up a shirt, we'll have a bit of stock there. It's all just pre-order stuff. We've only got a limited amount that you can actually buy off us, and then the rest is all just going to have to go through the website, which is about a week away. So Kurubel Hall, 6:30 to 8:30 Tuesday, which is tomorrow. And that's it. Come along to the workshops, grab a shirt, wear it with pride, and then as you see other people out there as well, it's like, yeah, I don't consent. You know, that's what it's designed for. So stay positive. That's the most important thing. Remember, this whole narrative is not... That's their script, but we consent to being the character or not. Or we can choose our own character. We do not have to play the characters that they are putting out for us to play. That's the deal. It's like, if you step into that role and you play it, well, you can't complain. But you can non-consent to it and say, actually, no, that's not my role. This is my role, and I know who I am. All right, I hope that helps. I'll do another one tomorrow. See ya.